World leaders are constantly promoting globalization, claiming it has been the reason for growth we have seen over the past few years. I would absolutely agree. Finally, I can agree with the mainstream media and governments. And now back to reality. Since we have had essentially no growth, we can point the finger directly at globalism for this. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Today we will talk about globalization and its failures, and I want to talk about China as well as many other topics today. Looking at this would be the rallies, the protests, the gatherings all around the world, major cities, and it seems to be primarily for women against Trump. That's generally what I'm seeing here. And you even had people from Canada arriving in DC to march. I'm a little confused about exactly what the topic is and what their intentions are. Is just to make themselves known. It seems to be pulled in each way. I mean, if you read the signs, seems like some individuals are just using this as an excuse to protest. What I do believe is that, and the reason I'm mentioning this is that when people are upset, they will take to the streets. And it doesn't matter what it's for. But imagine if it was something much more serious, much more sinister, much more damaging, whether this is something like a natural disaster or an economic collapse. People will definitely be on the streets, I assure you. Look at what happened. The streets erupting in Athens. And that is a prime example of what we could see in major cities around the world during an economic collapse. All right, let's get to it right away. Trend growth, world export value. Okay, let's take this. What has happened over essentially Obama presidency here, looking at 8 years or so. And what this also leads me to look at is the financial crisis. Okay, so we have the dip here. Now, think of this over the past 8 years, 10 years, whatever you want to call it. Look at this line, drag it across, and you have essentially no growth. Nothing globally. You average that out. Now, some countries do better than others. Some regions do better than others within a particular country. Cities do better and so on. But globally, as a whole, countries export to each other. They import from each other. And it's supposed to make these wheels spin around. But it doesn't seem to be that way. Seems to be a failure. Now, yes, you can get your cheap Chinese goods from your local store, but it really doesn't do any good for the economy as a whole. You think you're getting it cheaper, you're saving money, and that in fact is making you more wealthy when actually it doesn't seem to be the case, at least based on my estimation of all this. So what I would say basically is that globalization is not there, despite what you read, despite what they try to tell us. Globalization is not there in order to, so you can do trade between two countries. That's not globalism. Globalism is basically global governance or global government, which is the end goal, of course. But global governance is basically you want to have financial security. You want to have, no crises. So what you do is you give up your power to the IMF, to the World Bank, and let them decide. That way, if you have a body above all of that, a supranational entity, they will be able to control everything. And they promise to make sure that everything will be just fine. But we know that that would definitely be terrible. Not the case. All right, let's look at this. Strength of economic expansions. This is actually a very interesting chart. I like how they added the Obama face and the pointing there. That's pretty funny. But what you're looking at is the cumulative real GDP growth since the prior peak in percentage. And essentially, all I'm trying to show you is from 1948 to 2007, it basically pastes them on top of each other. Okay, so then look at this. You can see sort of a trend, right? This area in here. Okay. all growing relatively similar, okay, after each of these recessions. Then compare that to the 2007 situation. I mean, it's terrible. It's significantly lower than the rest, and it shows you how bad it really is. It's not doing well right now. It's really not. You can show the Dow Jones at 20,000, but what does that say about the economy? Nothing. It doesn't say anything about the economy. Sure, an individual can buy stock and then have that rise and their assets will increase, but a lot of people don't have money to buy stocks, right? So that's the problem. That's where they're not understanding. Economic growth doesn't come from necessarily these asset prices rising. I mean, it's all about living standards. Sure, your stock in Apple can go up. Are you making any money from that, or do you have to sell to make money from that? And if they do go up, what about your housing prices? Have they gone up? What about bills? Have they gone up? I mean, there's a lot of things that are not being addressed simply by looking at what the value of the Dow Jones is at any given moment. I thought this was amazing. It happens all the time in different sectors, and I just brought it up recently, actually. And look at this. At least 2 major Chinese private providers of home price data have stopped publishing the figures at a time when economists are split on whether the red-hot property market will remain a driver of the economy in 2017. What are economists doing right now? Well, they are looking at data, trying to figure out, is China heading towards recession? Are they heading toward a period of negative growth or very lagging growth? All right. Well, they'll look at that data, but wait a second, the data is not available. Oh, it just so happens to be the case. What happens when you have a really big situation, smog, pollution? They're closing down all the businesses. Everybody stay home with their air purifiers on and so on. Okay, you have that going on. What do? Turn off the reports for any sort of concerns of pollution or anything else. I mean, it's criminal. They do this all the time. When things get bad, just turn off the reports, turn off the alerts and everything else. What do you think is the reason for this? It's pretty obvious. The China Index Academy, a unit of US listed FANG holdings, has stopped distributing monthly housing price data for 100 cities that usually issued at the start of the month. We'll see if they do it next month. I want to know. So let's keep our eye on it, definitely. And I do believe that if it does continue, something is definitely going on. Maybe it's just this 1 month, holidays, I don't know. There could be a lot of excuses. But let's see what happens next month. That's going to be very, very, very telling for China. So let's pay attention. This here is something that regularly happens. I don't know how there hasn't been more investigation about this, but look at this. The death of a Supreme Court justice handling corruption accusations against dozens of Brazilian politicians will not derail the country's biggest ever graft probe, but will delay it. What happened? Well, he was killed in a plane crash. Warning, warning, warning. Whenever a plane crash and a politician are in the same sentence, you should have the light bulb going off. You should have the warning indicators going off. There should be bells and whistles heading everywhere. This is what happens so many times. I mean, look at Nigel Farage surviving his. You will see that many individuals high-level individuals end up dying in plane crashes. I mean, it's no coincidence when it happens over and over and over again. Anyway, essentially, he was going through some of this big information. He says, I'm going to release it to the public. I'm going to bring it out there, and then he dies in a plane crash. You never do that. Don't say anything, or immediately, as soon as you find the information out, just get the main points out there to the public. So it's out there, it's publicized, If anything happens, then it will be more obvious. But here he is saying he's going to do something, and then he ends up dying in a plane crash. They said it won't slow anything down, or it will slow the things down, but it won't really cause a problem. They're still going to go ahead and release that information. I just see this all the time with the assassinations. If you found this video informative, please give me a thumbs up. But if you prefer this instead, then you can give me a thumbs down. You can actually pause the video and just stare at it all day long. If you found the video informative, I know you'll find my book, The Money GPS, even more informative. So head over to Amazon, where they have a look inside feature that will allow you to flip through the pages of the book and see if you like it